In 1987, Marshall released their version of an anniversary amplifier, the Silver Jubilee, and it signified 25 years of Marshall amps and 50 years that Jim Marshall had been in the music business. One of the things that makes them so special and so valuable is that the Silver Jubilee was only made for 1 year. Now the next year, they made just the Jubilee in the traditional black and gold Marshall trade dress, but for the Silver Jubilee, one and done. Now this legendary amplifier in all its glory has been modeled by Softtube exclusively for Universal Audio. The Silver Jubilee is most known for its super shreddy triode tones that really accentuate the low-end thump and the top-end percussion. Here I'm dialing up an in-your-face kind of tone using extra bass, extra presence, and the clipping circuit on the input gain. The Silver Jubilee is based largely on the JCM 800, but it had a handful of unique circuit changes to give it its own voice, to make it special. You know, for starters, it was the first time that Marshall ever introduced a half-power switch. That let you take a 100-watt Jubilee and switch it down to 50, or a 50-watt Silver Jubilee and switch it down to 25, depending on which model you bought. The Silver Jubilee is overall darker and smoother than a JCM 800, but it had a really wide tonal variety based on the tone stack, and the tone stack is another name for the EQ section. But because of that wide tonal variety, it covered a ton of ground, and it made it a favorite for guitar players like Slash, John Frusciante, and Alex Lifeson. Here I'm going for an anthem guitar kind of sound, and the drone notes work really great with this kind of distortion. I'm using just the boost on the input gain to get a really tight response. You'll remember that when we introduced the 1959 Super Lead plugin, we gave you the option of a channel strip setting. When you open up the channel strip, it gives you control over level and panning of a handful of different mics. And for that one, it was valve mics, dynamic mics, condenser mics. We've carried that feature over to the Silver Jubilee. You have control over dynamic and condenser microphones with level and panning, but we've also introduced some really great sounding room mics, one of which adds some echo and delay into your signal. Let's back the gain down and go for a bright shimmery tone that really highlights the pick attack. Then we'll use the room delay to give us some space for a melodic rhythm part. You know, lots of companies have modeled amplifiers and some sound really good, but when we players talk about those, we rarely talk about the sound. We almost always talk about the feel of them. The reason I bring up the feel of a modeled amplifier is because when I plug into the Silver Jubilee, or the Bluesbreaker, or the Plexi, I'm getting something from Universal Audio that I will not get from anybody else, and it's called Unison technology. Unison technology is software control over the physical impedance on the front of the unit. There's relay switching inside that are changing based on which plugin you've chosen and which input you've chosen. Now this is great for you, the guitar player, because your guitar has no clue that it's not plugging directly into the actual Marshall. The Marshall Model 2555 Silver Jubilee is one of 3 Marshall plugins available from Universal Audio. Between the Silver Jubilee, the 1959 Super Lead Plexi, and the Model 1962 Bluesbreaker combo, you're going to be amazed at the myriad of inspiring guitar tones that are available to you only on UAD2 hardware and Apollo interfaces.